Inside the Castle, the podcast that goes behind castle doors to have real conversations with real people about solving the nation's toughest challenges. I'm one of your hosts for today, Angela Fryermuth.
And I'm Aaron Snyder. Today we have Mr. Jeff Kelly, who's a lock and dam equipment mechanics supervisor on the Ohio River at the Smithland Lock and Dam. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So Jeff, there's a lot of unique careers with the Army Corps of Engineers, and our Inside the Castle team wants to really shine that spotlight on some of these different careers. So this is a new series for us. So you're the first up, our guinea pig, I guess. And this is the series about a day in the life of. So today we really want to learn more about what it's like for you to work at one of the Corps' locks and dams. And to start us off, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started your career with the Corps, and what your background is?
Sure. I started back in 1987, started working at Lock and Dam 52 as a laborer and worked my way up to work leader there. Worked there for 25 years and then got a transfer to Smithland Lock and Dam as a work leader also. Worked there for a couple of years as a work leader, promoted up to the lockmaster or equipment mechanic supervisor, and have been here doing that job since 2012. Kind of my background, my dad was also the lockmaster here at Smithland Lock and Dam, and my grandpa also worked on the Kentucky River for Corps of Engineers. So it's a family tradition, I guess.
Sounds like it. I know I've had the pleasure of visiting multiple Corps lock and dams and seeing firsthand the effort that goes into operating and maintaining those critical infrastructures. So for those listening that have not been to a lock and dam, can you briefly describe, a lock and dam and you just talk about your typical day?
Sure. We're here for the movement of traffic. We keep the inland waterway running and keep the towboats moving up and down the river. We have two 1,200-foot, 110-foot wide locking chambers that we use for locking the tows and vessels up and down. We have 11 Tainer gates that are used for control of the water levels to keep a navigable pool upriver from us. And then we have a dam below us at Olmsted that does the same thing on our lower end, It's basically like a stair step that the boats run in. They go from one level to another, provided by the locks and dams. And every day is different. You never know what you're going to get into when you walk in the door. It could be a hydraulic failure or a boat accident. It's a different world every day.
Definitely sounds interesting, and it sounds a little bit loud, too. So, I can hear the background noise. Obviously, you're not doing this from an office somewhere. You're doing this right from the lock and dam, and, so we hear some noises. It sounded like I heard a horn before, and what are some of those noises that we're hearing, and then what do you guys do when things go wrong? How do you respond to fix things and keep things up and running?
Well, a lot of the noise you're hearing is hydraulic pumps. They're actually located right underneath me in the basement of the building I'm sitting in. And when we're locking boats, they're making noise. So when they're making noise, we're busy. And we have a crew of 15 plus myself here. We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We lock boats, and then if there's any kind of breakdown, maintenance issue, we call people in. They come in all hours of the night if needed and make the repairs the best we can. Sometimes it is a matter of shutting down for a little while to get parts in, and you never know. It's a lot of unknowns, but we just try to keep the place running 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it sounds like you never have a dull moment, and you definitely keep running. So speaking of running, how do you guys keep up with everything? It seems like there's a lot of moving pieces.
There's a total of 16 people that work here. Usually on any given day, there's two lock operators that are on the wall 24 hours a day. They work 12-hour shifts, so they swap every 12 hours. We have enough of those to rotate through that everybody gets, their time off. They work 80 hours a pay period. And then our maintenance personnel, we have 3 mechanics and a work leader and myself that are on the maintenance side, and we're here for either 8 or 10 hours a day. Always try to be available. Somebody's always available to come in and make repairs off times, when not actually at work. So we're kind of on call to keep the place running. That's the main mission, is to keep traffic moving safely and efficiently.
Talking about the traffic, one question I have for you is really how much traffic do you get? I mean, is this like you get a boat that comes through every 10 minutes, or is it 10 a day or 100 a day? Like, what's the magnitude of the traffic you see, and also any idea of the amount of quantity of materials that are being moved through the system?
Sure, we're every day's different, but we'll probably average 12 to 16 tows locking a day, and let's see, in 2019, we locked 56 million tons, and the year before that, in 2018, it was almost 63 million tons. So, and that's just the loaded barges. That doesn't count the empty barges. So as far as how many barges we locked, it's tremendous.
You talked a little bit about, the tonnage that comes through there. What kind of commodities are you seeing coming through, and, why are, the waterways important, and how do they benefit the nation?
Well, the types of commodities, they fluctuate throughout the year. In the fall, we have a lot of grain, a lot of corn and wheat and beans, and then there's constant coal going up and down river. There's also fuel and then chemicals. There's a multitude of produce and different things that move up and down the river. It's much cheaper to move commodities and products by barges than it is by rail or by truck. It's one barge will hold as much as 58 semi-trucks. It's amazing how much cheaper it is to move product like that on the river than it is by road or by rail too. One barge is equal to 15 hopper cars on the rails. It's a whole lot cheaper to move it by the barge.
Yeah, those numbers, my mind can't even comprehend. I think you mentioned 63 million tons, and just to imagine the amount of traffic that keeps off of the highway systems and the truck traffic and the impact to our roads or even rail. I mean, it's just such an impressive number to see the effects of the inland waterways. And the reality is the majority of the country and the nation really don't know that they exist. So the nation benefits significantly from these waterways, the services provide, but it's kind of one of those unknown jobs. And kind of wondering a little bit for you is, what do you love about the job? Is there something that stands out as this is the best part of my job that you could share with us?
Well, the accomplishment every day, at the end of the day, that we were able to keep the industry moving, and that's helping everybody out in the country and probably even the world. But it's keeping prices down, and the more we can move through here, it's a whole lot cheaper to go this way than it is by the road. And like you said, it keeps a lot of the traffic off the roads, saves the roadways a lot. So it's just this is by and large the cheapest way to move a lot of product.
And I guess could you weigh in on what's your favorite part of the job?
It's the satisfaction every day of what we're able to do with such a small amount of people. Actually, when you look at it, just 16 people here, and we're able to keep this place going and moving. Like I said, 63 million tons of cargo a couple of years ago. So that's pretty amazing, I think.
Thanks, Jeff. The flip side of this, what's the biggest challenge that you face when doing your job? And really, if you could be the boss for a day, is there anything that you would do differently?
Probably one of the biggest challenges here is even though we're one of the newer dams on the Ohio River, we're still 40 years old, and a lot of parts and different things that we try to repair and replace are becoming obsolete, and we could really use another personnel or two. The more help we had, the easier things would be for everybody. There's a lot of load on everybody here to try to get all of our jobs done. At the end of the day, you feel like you've spent all day here working at the end of the day, because there is a lot to get done. It never seems to decrease any. It's always more challenges added to the plate.
Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah, having worked with a bunch of the field site guys that work at the lock and dam, I definitely appreciate the efforts that you've put in, because it's long hours and a lot of hard work. As we're sitting here talking, how I got to thinking about how do you communicate with the tows going up and down the river? How do you know how many barges are in the queue? Just communication to make sure you don't get a bottleneck in any location.
Most of the communication is carried on with marine radios. Once the tow gets within range, he can reach us, and we work out a queue and get them lined up. Since times have changed since I started working here, now a lot of cell phones are used. The boats will even call us on the cell phone and line up a turn. We also have the Loma system. It uses a lot of internet, which is one thing is at a premium here. But we don't have very much of it. It's a very small bandwidth, but it is very helpful. The Loma system is you can track boats all over the United States, all over the world actually. But it'll tell you exactly where they are and how long it's going to be before they get here. So it's a tool that the operators use a lot to find out how many boats they got coming and make their plans for their shift.
No, that's great. So another question I have for you is you mentioned early on when we started out that this was kind of a family tradition for you. A number of your family members have worked up for the Corps on the locks and dams. Thank you all for that for sure. But what advice would you give to a person looking to work at a lock and dam?
Be willing to do whatever's needed to get the job done. And safety's a huge thing, but we have to constantly watch out for each other and for everyone around. There's a lot to be done, and you got to be willing to put out the effort to keep these places running. So you got to have a good working attitude, be a self-starter, try to be prepared and ready to go to work when you get here.
Yeah, that is great advice. So we're nearing the end of our time together, but before we end our conversation, I have to ask, what's the craziest thing that you've seen while working at one of the locks and dams? Keeping it PG-13, of course.
I can keep it PG-13, no problem. Probably in my earlier career working down at Lock and Dam 52, we worked a lot of hours at one time. It was not unusual to go to work at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and get off at 4 o'clock the next day. Work all day, all night, and all day the next day. Those were not fun times, but it was necessary to get the job done, and that's what we did. So that was probably some of the craziest times, trying to stay awake after being awake for that long. And where we were working, you were a step or two away from imminent danger. So it was very trying, but it was also the camaraderie was great between all the guys working. Everybody watched out for each other, and it's been a really good career.
Yeah, that's really great, and definitely appreciate that. And I think one thing that we probably take for granted too is just the difficulty and safety challenges out on the sites. Obviously, there's lots of moving pieces, big equipment, the barges coming through, so safety has to be a top priority. And we really appreciate everybody's time today, and we're really coming to the end now, but I just want to thank you for taking the time. Obviously, you've got a very busy job, important job, and we can hear all the work going on behind you, so we should probably let you get back to your crew to help out. But before we go, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us before we go?
I really appreciate y'all having me on today, and maybe somebody listening will understand a little bit about what we do here. It's a great place to work. It really is. The Corps of Engineers is a good family, and they do take care of each other. So I appreciate that.
Great. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Inside the Castle. We appreciate you and your insights. To our listeners, we want to hear from you, what topics are important to you, and people you're interested in hearing from. Until next time, be safe, be innovative, and be revolutionary.
To provide your feedback, email us at cw.infrastructure.team@usace.army.mil. Stay tuned for additional Inside the Castle podcasts as we explore life inside the Corps and revolutionize civil works together.